We're on page 29.
A bigger cup. You can take two
Okay.
in one.
Let's get as well. So we're in Halacha Yod, number 10. And we're saying yesterday about arrogance. Asur lalechet bekoma zekufa. A person is not allowed to walk in an arrogant fashion. V'hainu, we explained that means shelo yagbia rosho derech gava v'hitnaseut. A person should not lift their head in a way that's arrogant, egotistical. But on the other hand, we had the opposite. It's also dangerous to walk with a head that's too bent. And says Harav David Yosef, "Umikol makom, in any case, lo yichfof komato yoter midai." He shouldn't bow his head too much. Lo yichfof, a person should not bend komato, his back, yoter midai, too much. Ela b'midah benonit. Rather, take a middle ground. Every extreme is bad. Too much, too low. It's not good. A person should always have the middle ground. What does it mean? Kedei sheyuchal lirot, so that a person will be able to see et habaim, those that are coming, page 230 on top, kenegdo, those that are coming in his direction. It's true. Imagine if someone was so bent over, he's walking at the people, he's walking at the telephone poles, that's a Kiddush Hashem. It's like imagine you saw a guy who didn't want to look at ladies, so his whole life he walked with his hand like this, he walked into walls. That's what Kosh Baruch Hu wants you to look like. That's what Kosh wants to. Of course you shouldn't look at ladies, obviously. But it doesn't mean you're supposed to walk around like someone who's crazy.
I still like the story too about the group of people who were so long ago like this.
Sure, I remember that. There was
I heard a story recently where this person was texting on the phone, looking down, and the manhole cover had been removed from the hole, fell right down the hole.
That's true. I saw it on the news.
In Israel or here?
No, here. No, texting here. No. That's the disease of this world.
And they were in the street though, yeah.
The cell phones and the smartphones, and I'm still working on myself, but I have to be aware it's a disease. Okay. So, I think in general it's a good Musar skill to know. Sure, it's not a bad thing not to look at ladies. It's a halacha. You're not supposed to look at ladies. What does it mean? Look is like you can see people who are around you, but to look means to look intently.
That's hard to do.
If someone, I don't know, I can't give a shiur. This is every person has a different kind of neshama and a different kind of face and eyes. A person shouldn't perhaps. You don't need to know what the lady who was not your wife is wearing at shul. You know she was there. That's okay. But that's what she was wearing. Why should you remember what she was wearing? That's something you should be looking out for. There are things that a person can be shored at. I remember my rabbi, and that's already a different level. My rabbi, people come to speak to him, and it looks like he's looking at the ladies. It looks like this. He's really looking right above their head. He has this amazing way to look, and he's looking right above their head. And so everyone thinks he's looking at him. And so once I was with him, and we walked him out to the street, and the lady who was with him for an hour in the office asking for advice on life and halachot and things, she was, "Oh, Rabbi, thank you so much." Who was that? Who was it, Rabbi? I don't look at who's in my office. I spoke to her an hour. He didn't know who she was. Didn't know what she looked like. In the street, she said hello to him. He didn't know who she was. I'm not saying you all have to be. You don't all have to be tzaddikim. You have to be tzaddikim. Not that level of tzadkut. Harav Kook, Alav Shalom. Harav Kook, when he moved to England, he became a rabbi in England between the world wars. And he had to do things where in Europe or in Israel weren't so acceptable. England was already more Western. He wore sunglasses whenever he spoke to public audiences inside of a room. Harav Kook always wore sunglasses. A person should know to protect themselves. But because you want to protect yourself doesn't mean you should come off as a fool. Doesn't mean you should come off walking at the telephone poles. A person wants to look not arrogant, that's wonderful. but at least have some sechel that you're allowed to see the people who are approaching you. And it's proper to be stringent in this regard. Even if you are walking less than 4 amot. 4 amot, which is how many feet did we say that was?
6.
6 feet, about, give or take?
6 to 7.
Meaning, what's the problem? The problem is it says in the beginning, you are not allowed to walk arrogantly. And then it says, and you should not walk with your head uncovered for 4 amot. So the question is, does 4 amot only talk about the kippah? Or is 4 amot going back also on?
Walking with a straight back.
Oh, very nice. Walking arrogantly. So, when it says 4 amot, what is it referring to? So even though it's probably referring only to the kippah, a person should still try to take it on that even for a few steps he won't walk in an arrogant fashion. Okay. So, we have a problem. The problem is that the source of this halakha comes from the Gemara. That's not the problem. It's also mentioned halachically in the Rambam, in the Tur, and also, what book are we learning now? Shulchan Aruch, from the Shulchan Aruch. By here, does it specify who is not allowed to walk in an arrogant fashion? Who is it referring to? Everybody. It's in the normal section of halachot. But if you look in the Rambam, in the 5th chapter of Hilchot Deot, the laws of Deot, in the 8th halakha, the Rambam writes this not walking arrogantly only in regards to Torah scholars. And he doesn't mention it anywhere else, which led some people to believe that perhaps only Torah scholars are not allowed to walk like this, but everyone else can walk however they want. You gotta love Jews, right? This is Jewish heads over here.
That's very
special. Torah scholar.
Oh, maybe everyone should be a Torah scholar. So what can we do? Maran in the Shulchan Aruch writes this halakha for everyone, and therefore says the halakha bura ve'en hevdel. There's no difference bazeh in this regard. Ben talmid chacham, between the Torah scholar, leven shaar kol adam, or regarding anybody else. Meaning, there's no difference walking bekomas kufa, walking arrogantly, between a Torah scholar or a normal person. Everyone is not allowed to walk that way. Also, remember how he told you that some people only wore kippot in the Bet Knesset or when they were doing Jewish things?
Syrians, yeah.
So he adds in, v'chen also, en hevdel bazeh, there's no difference in this. Ben kashu bebet HaKnesset, whether he's in the synagogue, uveBet HaMidrash, or in the Bet HaMidrash, in the yeshiva. Leven kashu b'shar mekomot, or where he's somewhere else. I mean, it doesn't go part and parcel with the Bet Knesset, that you're not allowed to walk arrogantly. There you definitely shouldn't walk arrogantly. But everywhere you shouldn't walk in such a fashion. So while that's true,
It means everywhere.
everyone, everywhere, very nice. Now while that's true that it's everyone, everywhere, there's still going to be something special about a Bet Knesset. Tell me why. What's special about a Bet Knesset? Why are you not walking arrogantly? Yeah, well, in general, we're not walking arrogantly because of Hashem's presence, Yeah. And therefore, in the Bet Knesset, it's even worse. I mean, you also, especially there, you shouldn't be arrogant. Of all the places, sometimes, they say that people, they come for Bet Knesset, and while they're waiting around for the minyan to start, they're speaking Lashon Hara, they're speaking Rechilu, they're talking about business, all kinds of sports, whatever they like to talk about. Say that poskim, we understand you're waiting for the tefillah, so step outside of the Bet Knesset. You're never allowed to speak Lashon Hara. But Lashon Hara, when you're sitting in front of the Sifrei Torah in Hashem's house, it's even worse. It's like walking into a court case on murder and then killing somebody in the front of the judge. Why would he do that in front of the judge? You're not allowed to do it anywhere, but in front of the judge is even worse.
You're saving
Yeah.
court time.
What?
You're saving court
You're saving court.
The bill's right there behind the court.
So, a person has to think about these things. So says the Halacha Buam, Umikol Makom, in any case, bebet HaKnesset or bebet HaMidrash, in the synagogue and in the yeshiva, tzarich litnaheg, you must act yoter, with extra b'mora mikdash uv'achna, with extra fear of the holiness and with submission. The person should be a little bit more subdued in a Bet Knesset. Pnei kedushatam, because of their holiness. Uchmosh ne'emar, like it says in Tehillim, B'vet Elohim nehalech beregesh, we will go in the house of Hashem with regesh, with emotion, with sensitivity to the place where we are in. You know, that's why I don't like upstairs in our Bet Knesset at least. We try not to use this room for anything that's not holiday oriented. I mean, we use it for Bet Knesset. We use it, let's say, for meals, for the Seder, for Shabbat. But if we make a party or something, we try not to do it here. We don't have. Someone asked me once if they could rent the room out to do a bat mitzvah. He said, "Listen, it all depends what you're willing to pay. But in general, we try to keep this room a Bet Knesset. I don't want that someone should cover up the Torah like they do in some places and put out disco lights and start dancing. Okay, what is it? Bet Knesset. Oh, but it's our multi-purpose room. You're right, it's my multi-purpose room. But multi-purpose doesn't mean all purposes, just multi-purpose. It has a few purposes. A person has to know. I feel in America sometimes, but the Knesset, they use them for interesting things. There was a Bet Knesset I know in the East Coast that it's an interesting thing. They didn't have enough money to keep the Bet Knesset going, just based on membership. What they did was during the week between Shabbat and Shabbat, they didn't have a minyan. It was a huge building and it was empty. I would go there and pray there, and only the first 2 rows were filled up of the Bet Knesset. And behind us, I'm not exaggerating, maybe 45 rows. It was a huge community once upon a time. Today it's tiny. So what did they do? The board came up with an amazing invention. They lived in a neighborhood where a lot of people like to play bingo. Yeah, that was. And they had bingo nights in the Bet Knesset. Bingo. You come to the Bet Knesset on bingo night. Nobody there's Jewish, obviously, right? And they have, it's like a smoke event. I mean, it was full of smoke, and food and tables and dancing and it's the Bet Knesset.
They did it here, Long Beach, 30 years ago.
Don't tell me where, but I'm sure they did it at a lot of places. It's a big So I'm sure everyone asked their rabbi and they spoke about it. Okay, I'm not saying what they should or should not do. But here, we tried our Bet Knesset should never be used for a bingo club. Although sometimes it would help with the money, but, we're going to find other ways. There's a lot of Hashem. So,
Let's make it Jewish bingo.
Jewish bingo.
Yes, Bet Arba.
So, we're up to the halachot where we wanted to get to. Guys, this is big stuff here. Baruch atah Adonai Eloheinu melech haolam she'akol nהיה b'dvaro. Lo yelech, a person may not walk 4 amot, begilui harosh, with a revealed head. I want you to see something very interesting. What he's going to say regarding head covering. Why you should, why you shouldn't. Let's read it together. So next week we're going to spend time on this article. We're going to go through all the reasons. Head covering, why yes, why not, how. Some interesting things. It says, Vizmanenu, nowadays, Be'eretz Yisrael, in the land of Israel, this could also mean here, not just Israel, but he's living in Israel, so that's why he's writing it. Shekisui harosh, that a head covering. What do you say when you see a person with a head covering? What do you think about this?
They're different.
What's the first thing? Yeah, when you see somebody in the store with a kippah, what do you say? He's observant. He's religious, right? It's a You sometimes you walk in somewhere, you haven't seen Jews for 3 days, you see a kippah. Wow, look at this, there's somebody Jewish here. It's a special feeling. When you see someone with a kippah, obviously they're going to assume that this person is religious. I once met a guy with this big black kippah on his head. He wasn't even Jewish. He had some friends, his business partners, that were Jewish, and they told him that for good luck he should wear a kippah. So everywhere to this day, the man still wears a kippah. He's not a Jew. He doesn't even have intentions to be Jewish. Just always wears a kippah. That's his thing. It can be confusing. They're going to count him for a minyan. They're going to tell. It's going to be interesting. So when it comes to, they tell a story once about a guy whose car broke down on the side of the freeway. And so someone drives by, notices he's wearing kippah, stops and helps him out. After he helps him fix his tire, he tells him, listen, what synagogue do you belong to? Synagogue. What's a synagogue? What's a synagogue? He says, are you Jewish? He says, no. Why are you wearing that thing on your head? He said, my mother always told me that instead of paying for AAA, I should just keep one of these in my glove compartment. And if I ever get broken down on the side of the road, I put it on my head, someone's going to stop for me.
He's probably Jewish. He's got a Jewish mother.
Oh, there you go, you see? Yeah. So you never know why and where, but normally when you see somebody with a kippah, your assumption is, this person is an observant Jew, a Torah observant Jew. Why not say somebody with a Magen David necklace, a Star of David necklace?
Madonna has one too.
Madonna. I was once at Target and the lady who was checking us out, she was wearing a Chai necklace. He said, oh, are you Jewish? I said, no. I said, well, what's that around your neck? She said, oh, it means love in Hebrew. I don't know which Hebrew you speak, but I'm sure that's somewhere it means that, right? I was in Oxnard this weekend, and Chabad Rabbi told me that, believe it or not, he's not the only Chabad of Oxnard. He said there's a Chabad center in Oxnard that's a church.
Whoa.
It's a church. And very often people put into Google Chabad of Oxnard and they end up at the church.
No.
And he said he once sent someone over there to figure out, what's going on with Chabad. It was an older, pastor. He lives in this church. Been there for a long time. He was there before Chabad of Oxnard. I mean, he is the Chabad of Oxnard. And he said, the reason we call ourselves Chabad, that's what he says, Chabad of Oxnard, is because Chabad in Hebrew means wisdom. And he said, well, it's not exactly what it means. It's an acronym, Chochmah, Bina, Dat, wisdom, intellect, understanding. It's like, but I guess part of it is wisdom. But, so what are you going to do? There's two Chabad of Oxnard. One's Jewish and one's a church. So sometimes you never know. But in general, the world, you see somebody with a kippah, you assume he's religious. You see somebody with a sign outside of his building that says Chabad, you're going to assume it's a synagogue, right? You see somebody with a Chai necklace, you're probably going to assume they're Jewish, but not that they are
religious.
That they're religious. That they're not. You're not going to assume they're Torah observant. So let's see what it says. Nowadays, because the head covering, hu heker miyuchad, it's a special symbol. La'anashim, for people who are shomrei Torah, observant of Torah, u'mitzvot and mitzvot. Hamikablim alehem, who accept upon themselves all malchut shamayim, the yoke of the kingdom of heaven. V'rak, and only chiloniim, those Jews who don't identify themselves as observant. I'm not saying anything bad, just they don't personally identify themselves as observant. Porkei ol Torah u'mitzvot, they reject that they are under the kingdom of Hashem, or that they have an obligation to observe Torah and mitzvot. Einam mechasim et rosham, they don't cover their head. And also for us in America, that v'kisui harosh, the head covering, mavdil, differentiates ben oved Elohim, between one who serves Hashem, la'asher lo ovdo, and somebody who doesn't serve Hashem. Like we said, you see somebody with a kippah on, you assume he's Jewish. Except for the Pope. Somebody will send me a picture of the Pope, and in the back of his kippah it said, from the bar mitzvah of Sam Greenberg. That was that was a good picture. Because he wears one of those plastic kinds they send out in the bar mitzvah.
Satin, freebies.
But in general, you see somebody wears a kippah, he's Torah observant. Someone doesn't wear a kippah, he's not Torah observant. And because of that alone, Tzarich kol ish miYisrael, every Jew has to be careful, lizaher lechasot rosho, to cover his head. Ulharot bekach, and to show with this, shemora HaShamayim alav, that he has fear of heaven on himself. So he gives an interesting reason for why a kippah perhaps is no longer just a suggestion, like the Syrians or the Germans thought about it, because then it was normal for an observant Jew to walk around without a kippah. But today, because our societal norm is that a religious Jew wears a head covering, we have an obligation as well. It says, "V'hibadel mitoch ha'edah hara." We have an obligation to always separate ourselves from those who are not following Hashem. So part of the way to separate is to wear a kippah. Part of the way to separate is to wear a kippah. Now, people are afraid. I know people are very afraid to wear kippah. At work, and the job. And so I have a guy who comes to my Beth Knesset. He's always afraid if he does something bad with a kippah on, it's going to be a chilul Hashem. It's going to desecrate Hashem's name. So whenever he drives like crazy on the freeway, he wears a baseball cap. I told him, how
Do
about
my
you
kids tell you about me?
I said, how about you just... I said, why don't you just drive safe? I said, or wear a seatbelt. But
Yeah.
it's like the baseball cap's not going to take care of you when you drive not safe. But the idea was, we are representatives of HaKadosh Baruch Hu, and it will not hurt you. You're in the world already of 2014. I mean, people walk around the streets with much crazier things on their faces and their heads. I was at a hotel recently. There was a guy it wasn't an ear ring. It was a ring, and it was
an
in
ear
his
tire?
ear. Yeah, you know what I'm talking about? He spread out his ear. You could fit your hand inside of his ear and out. It was unbelievable. Unbelievable. So if he can walk around like that and he can get a job, you don't have to be afraid about wearing kippah.
Why didn't I get a job?
But he was working in the hotel, behind the front desk.
He was a concierge.
I mean, this is the world we're in. People today, you should see how they dress. Don't dress in the streets. They don't have anything to be afraid of. It could be that there was once a world where everyone dressed the same way. You don't live in such a planet. Look around the room. Who's dressed the same over here? Every one of us looks different. So what? So the kippah, it's not going to hurt you. It's not baduk. It's not going to hurt you. It will only help you. People know that you're committed to something. You know what it's like to try to get off for Shabbat when you don't wear a kippah? But when you're wearing a kippah, people, of course, they realize you're religious. So what are they going to do? They know that you're committed to it. Then every day you defy gravity and walk with something on your head. That means something to them. And the people who don't want to hire you, so Baruch Hashem, you don't have to work for them. Something to think about. A kippah is something important. I had a student who told me, if I had to choose one mitzvah when I go back to college, after a year in Israel, I want to choose one mitzvah. Should I wear a kippah? Or should I wear tzitzit? Which is a bigger mitzvah? Obviously tzitzit. Tzitzit is from the Torah. I told him he should wear a kippah. Not tzitzit. What do you mean? I said, I know you. I know how this works. If you wear a kippah, so I know you're going to go to the same parties you always go to. So you can't take it off either. Some days you wear a kippah, you always wear a kippah. When you're at a kippah, you're at a party, those non-Jewish girls, they know that you're wearing a kippah. You're wearing tzitzit, who knows? Who's keeping you Jewish? So if someone who wears a kippah will eventually end up wearing tzitzit. Someone who wears tzitzit without a kippah will eventually also not wear his tzitzit. Baduk, I was right. Baruch Hashem, all my students who wore kippot, they kept their kippot. Those who wore tzitzit, just tzitzit, either they put on a kippah and kept the tzitzit, or they didn't wear a kippah and they lost their tzitzit also. Sometimes priority also is what's going to last longer. Interesting question for you. If someone tells you, I want to keep one mitzvah first, either Shabbat or kosher, which one should I do?
Shabbat.
Well, based on the luster, I would say the kosher.
I would say Shabbat.
Which is holier?
Shabbat.
Shabbat.
I don't know. Shabbat's a pretty big deal. Shabbat's a pretty big deal.
Told him to keep kosher on
Not kosher,
Shabbat.
what you learn.
At least there's no doubt
Why
about
what?
it.
Not kosher, what you do on the Sabbath.
What do you do on Shabbat? Listen, I was at Costco before Pesach and I saw a basket full of Manischewitz, Kedem grape juice, gefilte fish jars, and all the not kosher meat from the Costco section. So, there are people like that. There's a temple over here in San Diego. They don't keep kosher. But Pesach, they don't eat gebrachts. I don't know what that means. I don't know if they don't dip their challah in the soup on Pesach. I don't know what it is they don't do. But sometimes, they'll buy menashevitz and they'll eat some gefilte fish, and that will be their Shabbat. But Shabbat is a holy thing. Mikor ha-beracha. That's where all the blessings come from. Kashrut, on the other hand, is also someone who eats not kosher food. It dumbs down his neshama. So it's a machloket. Some rabbis say like this. Some rabbis say like that. My personal leaning is towards kashrut, because a person has to constantly make a decision every single day. I want to eat lunch. I want to eat breakfast. I want to go to the store. I want to buy stuff. Every time he's thinking that I keep kosher. Someone who keeps Shabbat, from Shabbat till Shabbat, he can do whatever he wants. He doesn't have to think about Shabbat, doesn't have to keep Shabbat. Once a week. I'd rather someone consistently and constantly be thinking about HaKadosh Baruch Hu than once a week to think about something. I don't know that I'm right, I don't know that I'm wrong, but it's something to think about in line with this discussion about the kippot. So it's reason enough to wear a kippah so that we can differentiate ourselves from the people around us who do not wear kippot and do not affiliate themselves with HaKadosh Baruch Hu.
It is interesting because when I was become more observant, I was keeping kosher food, at least inside the house, first before I took Shabbat. It's weird because you go out on a Saturday and it's like you can't eat anywhere because all the kosher places are closed.
They're all closed. Hi. Look at that.
Share that one.
No, that's interesting.
That was
there you
many
go.
years ago.
And look, Baruch Hashem. Kollel. So, we still have a problem though. If this is true, and it seems to be that Rabbi David Yosef is saying, you have to wear a kippah. What does he do with the fact that Shulchan Aruch seems to be saying that the kippah is only a suggestion? Only a suggestion. So he explains it like this. He says, Umimidat chasidut, it's a higher level of piety, meaning not required, but strongly suggested. Lechasot rosho, to cover your head. Afilu ksheholech, even when a person is walking. Pachot mi-arba amot, less than 4 amot. Meaning, more than 4 amot is a requirement. Less than 4 amot, then you're already being super holy. You need to grab something from the table to the couch. It's 2 steps. It's a midat chasidut. It's a righteous, pious thing to cover your head in. Technically, you don't have to. But it's a proper thing to do. So come the Jews, and the Jews ask beautiful questions. You know Jewish questions? What if I'm not walking? It says in the Shulchan Aruch, when I walk, do not walk 4 amot without a kippah on.
But not when I snowboard.
Maybe I'm riding my bike. Or as the Taz brings down, maybe I'm riding on a donkey or on a horse. Or as someone asked for Moshe Feinstein, maybe I'm driving my car. I'm not walking, I'm sitting in my chair. It's like I'm sitting on my couch. I'm just moving, but I'm not moving. The car is moving with me inside of it.
What if I'm jumping?
So maybe the car has to wear a kippah, but me, I don't have to wear a kippah. What?
You can get on a plane, go around the world, and
Right, you can go anywhere. Just is it specifically walking? So there's the Gemara in Masechet Kiddushin. The Gemara says in Masechet Kiddushin that walking is considered, riding is considered walking. Riding is considered walking.
What about hopping?
That I would already say you're using your legs. That's a good question, but you're still using your legs.
What if you're using your arms?
Maybe you were on a scooter or you were on a skateboard. That's a good question.
Handstands.
You know when this question came up to Moshe Feinstein?
basketball.
You have to understand a Jewish cup in a Jewish head, how that works? Like this. You know that you're not allowed to carry on Shabbat. Period. Right? Anywhere that's a public domain, you're not allowed to carry. What is the definition of a public domain?
Something that's not yours?
When 600,000 people go on in an
Right.
hour.
For Ashkenazim, 600,000 people walk through that street a day. A day.
That ain't governor, folks.
For Sfaradim, any road that is wider than 17 amot. Any road that is wider than 17 amot. What's 17 amot? Someone do the math. 17 times 12. I'm not a mathematician.
25 feet.
About 25 feet? Anything wider than 25 feet is considered a reshut harabim deoraita, a biblical place where you're not allowed to carry. If you have a road that 600,000 people walk by, it doesn't make a difference how many eruvs you put there. You still can't carry there. You still can't carry there. And that's why Sephardim hold that technically if you would put up an eruv and the street is wider than 25 feet, you still would not be allowed to carry there. So what do most Sephardim do? We rely on the Rama, on Ashkenazim, and that's okay. Ramavad says we're allowed to. But the mainstream Sephardic Halakha is that even in an eruv the street's too big, you can't carry.
What about this street?
The Governor Drive, this is even worse. I mean,
Even,
talking about-
even the small street like that we live on, or the
Right,
your mom and
that's
dad live on,
17
it's
amot,
like,
sure.
yeah, it's already bigger.
Sure. So, 10 zainamot. Could even be 16 amot. Could be. No, 10, yeah, could be. So, interesting. Jerome, you want an assignment? Go to Mishnah Bura. Either Chelek Gimel or Chelek Daled. One of the two is going to say on the side, Hilchot Eruvin. Gimel? Yeah? So look there, and it's going to tell you the definition of, and whatever first halakha there is an eruv. So, you're only allowed to put up an eruv in a place that's considered a reshut harabim of the rabbis. A public thoroughfare of the rabbis. What is that? Anywhere that is? Anywhere that is?
Not Knesset.
No, I mean anywhere that's less than
Oh,
600,000 people.
Yeah.
Or 17 amot. Let's just use the definition of 600,000 people. That seems to be the majority of the world follows his opinion. 600,000 people.
600,000.
Yeah.
That's a good size city.
So we're going to use that number. We're going to follow the Ashkenazim for now. It's the first opinion of the Shulchan Aruch.
A day?
A day.
Through that street. Yeah.
Oh, then it's fair.
500,000 people, 1,000,000 people walking a day.
Rav Moshe Feinstein. And the answer is that most places in the world you'll go to never have that number of people walking through it, and you're allowed to build an Eruv everywhere.
Yeah, it's like the Super Bowl lets out, and then you count in,
Right.
in half an hour, 600,000 people have.
Rav Moshe Feinstein, as well as Rav Yaakov Kamenetsky, as well as a few others, it's going to be on the left-hand side of the page, if I remember, on the top of the page. You're going to find Maran over there somewhere. So, if a person does the math in Manhattan, they claim that in Manhattan, you definitely have people traveling in the city, more than 500,000 people every single day. And therefore, the opinion of Rav Moshe Feinstein was that you are not allowed to build an Eruv in Manhattan. Because Manhattan is not Eruvable. Meaning, the rabbis can say, we let you build an Eruv anywhere that we hold is forbidden. But if the Torah says it's forbidden to carry there, we can't do anything about it. We can't make up a loophole for that. And there are some rabbis who want to say, no, it's not all of Manhattan. There are some main streets in Manhattan, like Broadway, goes all through Manhattan. So you can't have an Eruv that crosses Broadway. But the side neighborhoods, you can make smaller Eruvs, and those count. I know Yeshiva University has such an Eruv, though Rav Moshe Feinstein didn't agree that you could build such an Eruv.
You're saying just because it was in the community where there's this big street, you couldn't have an
That makes the whole place, that whole place, because he said it's an island, and
But in Europe, the streets used to be tiny, especially in the ghetto.
he's going to say, you're in the right section. There's going to be a section where he's going to say, what is a Reshut HaRabim?
Talking about Chatzar, a lot of people where the houses were facing each other.
Where's the first one? Where's the first one of it?
I looked at table of contents at 458. It was the first page of air review. Yes, it's not under review.
I'll look for. If you want to keep looking, you can. Thank you. So, the opinion of most people, you're not allowed to carry in Manhattan, even if there is an Eruv. That seems to be the majority opinion. Though today I already see people building Eruvs in Manhattan, they don't care much. Okay, I'm not that big. Then I was Moshe Feinstein.
A dot has an arrow that crosses
La Jolla Village Drive definitely doesn't have 600,000 people go through there. Maybe a large number, but not 600,000. You're right, but a main street is not the same thing as 600,000 people.
Yeah, even freeways don't necessarily do that.
Right, right.
Like the Freeway 10.
Like Manhattan is especially dense. That's why we're not talking about Brooklyn. We're talking about Manhattan specifically. It's for this reason that some people tried to be smart with Moshe Feinstein, and they came up with the following loophole. Listen well. The Shulchan Aruch says 600,000 people who walk through there. But most of the people who are going through Manhattan are actually driving through Manhattan. Or they're taking the subway through Manhattan. They're not walking. So maybe every car is considered its own private domain, and it's just passing through the public domain, in which case we would only need to count the people who are walking on the sidewalks, not the people who are driving in the cars, riding on the buses, riding on the subways, and maybe we'll be allowed to build Erevs in Manhattan. Moshe Feinstein threw this entire idea out of the window. He said driving, walking is the same thing. Jews like loopholes, though you should know. And that's why here, Chacham David is going to tell us the following thing. V'afilu im eino mehalech beraglav. V'afilu, and even, if eino, he is not mehalech, walking, beraglav, on his legs. Ela, rather, he's nosea b'mchonit. He's driving in a car. Oh, barakevet. What's a rakevet?
Train.
A train. V'chayotze bazer, anything similar to that. Ra'ui lachmir, it's proper to be strict. L'chasot rosho, to cover one's head. V'afilu hu omed al mikomo, and even if he's standing in one place, O yoshev al kiser, he's sitting in a chair.
Yeah, Ted Zayin Amah.
Oh, where'd you find it?
So,
It's a chelik. Which chelik?
at the very beginning of the...
It's Siman 345,
And
page
Seif
392.
Zayin
Which chelik? Gimel?
Gim.
Beautiful.
So Ezra Rishut Rabim.
Listen.
בשווקים הרחבים Ted Zayin Amah. ואינם מקורים ואין להם חומה, ואפילו יש להם חומה, אם הם מפורשים משער לשער, הווה רשות הרבים.
There you go. So Maran says, how Ted Zayin? Ted Zayin or Yud Zayin? Ted Zayin. So 16. 16 amot. 16 amot. Not 17 amot.
16.
Guys, it just got harder. Thank you. So, even a person sitting on a chair.
16 or 17?
16, right? We came to 16?
16.
16. Ted Zayin. Ra'ui, there's another place where he mentions it. He's going to talk about 600,000 people. So maybe look in one of the sources. Yeah, Maran himself. Look in the sources, it might reference you to somewhere else. Even if he's standing still or he's sitting on a chair, Ra'ui shelo yisheh k'sharosho meguleh. It's proper that he should not stay there with his head uncovered. Top of page 31. Now, some want to say that really the roof of a building is like a kippah. And inside of your house, maybe you could sit down on a chair without a kippah, because the roof is your kippah. What?
The sky.
Right, there's the umbrella as well. I mean, the only time you have to stay still and wear a kippah is if you're outside. But if you're inside a building, there are some want to be lenient. Says the custom is to be strict. Bazeh, in this regard. Ben kshenimtza michutz labayit, whether you're outside of a building, tachat, underneath, kippat HaShamayim, the kippah of the sky, meaning the sky. Uven, and whether kshenimtza, when you are betoch beito, inside of his house, tachat hatikra, underneath the roof. And here we bring an interesting halakha.
What's a megula? this one?
Megula is revealed
Revealed.
or uncovered.
Is it the same as the root as the source of like Megillah?
I don't know. Because I don't know what the shorsh of Megillah is. Umidat Chasidut, and it is an extra level of piety, lelechet lishon, to go to sleep, kasherosho mechuseh, with your head covered. Umikol makom, in any case, im nafal kisui harosh, if the head covering fell off b'sha'at hashana while you were sleeping, en lachush, there's nothing to be concerned about. Meaning it seems there's an extra level of holiness to cover one's head when they're sleeping. You'll see in many circles, they have, I know in Hasidic circles, they have what's called a, forgive my Arabic, a shluf kappel. What's a shluf kappel? A shluf kappel is when you shluf, you sleep. Kappel, it's a hat. It's a shluf kappel. It's a hat you wear when you sleep. And what it is, it's like a bigger kippah. It's why when you go to most yeshivot, and most yeshiva guys sleep with their kippahs on, most yeshivot you'll find that everybody at night becomes Nanach, Nachman, Meumans. They're not Breslov, it's not a Breslov group, but they claim to be Breslov. They wear these big white kippahs with the letters around them. The reason being because those are the only ones that don't fall off when you sleep. As they fall asleep in those. We all had our days with the Nanach kippahs. Some people get just bigger size kippahs. Some people just have a kippah. Whenever it comes off, it comes off. Some people have a kippah they like to keep it nice and crisp. They put on their bedside, and another one they sleep with. Whatever you want to do. And it's an extra level of piety to sleep with a kippah. Are you doing something wrong if you don't sleep with a kippah? No, absolutely not. Absolutely not. Because to go from a place where we pretty much said it might be allowed to even walk without a kippah, now to sleep with a kippah is a whole new level. But it's a midat chasidut. There are a number of Kabbalists. It's the Kabbalistic thing that a person should sleep with a kippah on. It appears to me that also in some chasiduyot this is mainstream. I think in Lubavitch it's mainstream to sleep with a kippah. It's kippah and tzitzit, both of them. We'll mention the tzitzit when we get to the Arizal a little bit later on. Right, you guys have a little bit more koach? Yeah? Okay, come. We'll do... How big does your kippah have to be?
Ask an Israeli.
Ask an Israeli, right? They have in Israel something it's called a kippat grush. What is a grush? Do you know? A dime. I'm not joking. In Israel, I saw somebody with a kippah. Don't worry, I'll eat it if I touch it. I don't want to...
Saw something floating around there? I saw a new frame.
Look at this. The clip was bigger than the kippah. It sat in the middle of his head. If you weren't tall enough, you wouldn't be able to see it. If you were tough, you wouldn't be able to see it. I touched it, so. They call it.
It says it's in the biggest stuff.
Yeah?
It says, I'm there looking at the wrong. Again, Abraham, during the regular Rashi. It doesn't really say anything.
Here. V'yesh HaShamayim, some say.
You told me.
Sir, on the left side of the page, right? I told you.
Yeah.
So, how big does your kippah have to be? Is a grush good enough? On the other hand, you see people, they walk around with kippahs, you don't see their hair. It's like a helmet, you know. So what? How big does your kippah have to be? So let's read inside.
I heard some people say bigger the kippah, bigger the brain.
Or the bigger the bald spot, depending who you are.
Oops.
So mimidat chasidut, it's a higher level of piety. Ra'ui, that it's proper lechol ish misrael, for every Jew, lilbosh kova, to wear a hat, or kippah, hamchasim et kol harosh, that cover an entire head, or et rubo, or at least the majority of a person's head. I have a book here. I actually didn't mean to bring it, but to this class, I'm going to bring it to a different class. you'll find pictures here of dozens and dozens and dozens of rabbis from Morocco, meaning not places they wore black hats, yeah? But all of them have some kind of headgear. That's actually a hat. Who's that? All of them have some form of hat which covers the majority of the head. See here?
Yeah, but I mean, that's where
The biri?
that's what people wore at the time.
So actually it's not true.
The hoodies.
It's not true. The only pictures we have of people from then are those. It seems to be, and we're going to discuss this when we go through the letter, it seems to be that many people had two kippahs. A small kippah and a big kippah. A small kippah they wore at home, and a bigger kippah when they left their home. I'm not saying a black hat. I'm not a person who believes that you have to wear a black hat. Please don't think so. I hate my black hat. I wear it just because that's what I wear when I have to look like a rabbi or on Shabbat. But you don't see me during the week running around with my black hat. But all of Gdolei, especially Gdolei Sepharad, you'll find they always had a special tarbush, and not everybody had a tarbush. The rabbis had tarbushim. There were people who were more important. They had bigger hats. There was the style. And every place, you're right, they wore the kind of head covering that other people wore. But for example, to walk around with a hood all day long, not your average Arab in Morocco wore a hood. It was the people who were Chachamim that walked around with their hoods on all the time. And the same thing is true in Yemen, I've researched that, also in Ashkenaz. And the idea is that you don't have to wear such a big head covering, but it's an extra level of piety to cover your head as much as you possibly can, also in size, not just in duration.
So you shouldn't use the dime kippah?
So definitely the dime kippah is not a midat chasidut. Yeah? Now, umikol makom, but in any case, let's answer your question, Avram. Min hadin, the basic halacha is hakippah, im hakippah or hakova, if the kippah or the hat, nirim v'nikarim, are able to be seen, mikol tzadei harosh, from every side of your head, milfanim, umachor umin etzadim, from the front, the back, the sides. I mean, it's big enough that wherever you stand, you can see the person's wearing a kippah. Af al pi sheinam mechasim et rov harosh, even though they don't cover the majority of a person's head. Rashai lilovsham belo kisui nosaf. You're allowed to wear them. You don't need an extra additional head covering. That's just what you have to wear.
Oh, so 3 dime kippahs.
3 dime kippah. But look around. Every single one of you here has a kippah that's big enough to be seen from every side of your head. So we all do it. We all do it. If a person wanted, they could get a kippah this big. You don't have to. You don't have to. A person just has to wear a kippah. You can see from every side of your head. This opinion is, if I'm not mistaken, brought down by Rabbi Shlomo Kluger. He is the one who expressed this in writing. And unfortunately, some people are afraid of their kippots. They wear tiny little kippots and they don't want people to see them. But those don't count for much more than, it's like a chai necklace. I don't want to take away their credit. They're wearing something on their head. But it's like I don't know, you see a tiny little quarter on somebody's head. Maybe it's litter, it got stuck in their hair. So you don't know what it is. But a person wants to wear a proper kippah, should be big enough you could see it from every side of your head.
A normal tomato slice.
Sometimes you see some people that wear in the back of their head. I never figured
That's
that one.
that's the only reason to distinguish between religious and not religious.
It's not the only reason for the kippah.
So it's not to be the
It's the reason why, we're going to say it next week, I said, we're going to go through all the sources for why we wear a kippah. But it's the reason why today it's gone from being just a suggestion to being a chuvah. We have an obligation to separate ourselves from people who are not Ovdei Hashem. The next halakha is interesting. Yeah.
In the army, I've noticed the idea they wear those small flat ones.
It's not the army, it's a certain chevra that goes to the army. Okay, you can see them, right?
Yeah.
I don't like to take away mitzvahs from Israel.
So when you say separate yourself, you're not talking about making yourself special in the sense of how you feel, like I'm better than everybody else.
No, it's not an elitist attitude. It's an attitude that I want to be different. You know, someone sent me a picture on Purim. It showed this Israeli soldier, and his son was dressed up like a Haredi guy, long black coat and peot. And it showed walking down the other side of the street. It was a cartoon. it showed this Haredi guy, long black coat, and his son was dressed up like an Israeli soldier.
Yeah.
And both of them were reminding their kids, remember, this is just for Purim, it's just the costume, right? Okay, we're not here to separate Jews. We want to know that a person who's a HaShamayim. It's, I was walking to Beit Knesset once in a different neighborhood, and I saw somebody walking with a kippah. I was very happy. It made me feel like I'm not alone here. There's somebody like us here. I'm sure there are Jews who don't wear kippah that are good people. I'm not taking it away from them. When there are people who wear kippah that you never want to speak to in your life. There are such people in the world. But at the end of the day, there is a certain uniform. A uniform of what does it mean to look like an observant Jew. It would be a kippah. That's probably the one thing that we all agree on.
But today the kippah, it's also like a uniform, because you can distinguish by the kippah they're wearing what kind of movement is going. If it's from Chabad or if from Syria, like in New York, the Syrian go with the black, big black one, and the Israelis go with the kippah sruga.
Sure.
That's true.
We've already gone interdenominational with the kippot. What kind of kippah you wear? What kind?
That really bothered me too. We had this one speaker come from Jerusalem, came here to San Diego once, and I was asking him about it. Isn't it kind of like, sinat chinam that you get like all these people that they've got this kippah and not that kippah. Say, oh look, they're not part of our group. It's like that's not about Ahavat Yisrael. That's not the kind of unity if people are kind of looking at their kippah. It's like, well, I can't sit with you, I can't talk to you. And he goes, you're absolutely right. That is a big problem. So there was a movement in Israel of people that actually made a new kind of kippah.
It's half and half.
They cut like in 6 pieces. Like this part was velvet, and this part was shruga, and this part was leather, and this part was.
I had such a kippah. I once had such a kippah, and they embroidered on it. It said, "Ani Yehudi," I'm Jewish. That's what it said. So the problem is that I think even in that kippah, you're feeding into their problem.
Yeah.
The proper attitude is, for example, I have never noticed until we just brought this up, what kind of kippahs you wear. You wear a kippah, good for you. It's plastic, it's paper, it's sruga, it's velvet. Or you cut your pants, you made it a kippah, good for you. I don't care. Something's on your head, you're showing HaShamayim. Actually, in Yiddish, the word for kippah is yarmulka. What's a yarmulka, right? A yarmulka. So they say that it comes from the word yareh malka, to fear Hashem. To instill in a person a fear of Shamayim. Whether it's true or not, I don't know, but it's definitely interesting pshat. In any case, we say kippah.
Rabbi,
yes.
Turns out this year in Mea Shearim, they outlawed wearing, IDF soldier costumes for kids because of the battle against the decree.
I don't want to hear it. It's so sad.
They don't want to serve in the army.
Okay, what can you do? So, let's pause here for tonight. Let's break up. You have 10 minutes. Learn the chavrutot. We're going to discuss next week. I don't know. Not everything you learn in a book of halachot you have to agree with. If you have sources otherwise, he's going to speak next about hats. So they have to wear a hat, don't have to wear a hat. What is a hat? Okay, it's interesting. We're going to speak also next week about toupees. Have you ever thought of this question?
Toupees.
What if someone wears a toupee? They have a bald spot, they cover it up with fake hair. Do they have to wear a kippah?
No.
Do they have to wear a kippah?
It depends on their intent.
No.
Well, it looks like hair.
So let me ask you a question. It says that a lady has to cover her hair. A sheitel isn't different than a toupee. So if you would say that a sheitel is a head covering, what would be your excuse that a toupee is different? You could. I know an answer. You'd have to find it. We'll get to that next week. What about a toupee? We're going to speak about next week. What if you don't have a kippah? You just have your hand. Can you cover your head with your hand? I see people do that.
I don't think you can. You can cover someone else's.
You can cover your head with someone else's hand,
But no.
not with your own hand. You could cover your head technically with your sleeve, but not your hand. Then you go like this, but not your hand. If a person is in bed, can they lean back into their pillow and use their pillow as a head covering? A number of questions that are going to come up. What if a person made a bracha and they weren't covering their head? They didn't realize they were got out of bed. They made a bracha, and they didn't realize they had their head uncovered. They have to go back and make the bracha again.
That's what I've been curious about.
Have they said God's name in vain? We're going to go through all these halachot, God willing, next week. Do children have to wear kippahs? If so, from what age? And if so, why? What size is significant enough for them? We're going to go through all these halachot next week, and then we finally hit something that's a little bit more practical and touching our daily life. You'll find random halachot. You would never think that this halakha Trust me, you're going to get to the next chapter and you're going to be talking about the laws of bathrooms for a month. You're going to wonder what happened to the kippahs, right? We want to go back to the kippahs. Jack's going to have a good time explaining to us certain halachot. He's been researching them in depth, right? So God willing, enjoy the kippahs while they last. Let's break up with the chavrutot.